gunsmithing, useful car batteries, craftable ammunition, timberwolves in the sandbox, and, among other things, a brand new zone accessible only by solving a genuine, actual, environmental puzzle. Hello, Legion. This is Hadrian. Thank you for being here. Let's play The Long Dark, and welcome to Season 6 of a little series we like to call Against All Odds. I want to go through some introductions for new viewers, so there are some timestamps on the screen which you can use to skip ahead, especially if you just want to get straight to gameplay. First, I want to introduce you to The Long Dark, which is now on PC, Xbox One, and PS4, if you've never played it and are considering watching the series or getting a copy of the game, or both. Athenon and I already did a podcast-style discussion of the most recent update to the game, and I'll skip my usual overview of the most recent update for that reason and just link you to the podcast in the description below. So, second, I'm going to jump straight into the series objectives and my playstyle, which is going to be really useful to listen to if you're new to the channel and maybe not familiar with my style of episodic Let's Play. And finally, I want to talk about the unique settings we'll be using for AAO6, as well as how they compare to AAO5. So that's really the meat and potatoes for longtime viewers who want to know how this series differs from the last. While it can come as a surprise to the many of us who have been playing it for years, as The Long Dark continues to sell and release new content, there are still people out there, and you might be one of them, who have no clue what this game is all about and no idea just how great it is. The Long Dark is an independently developed survival masterpiece by a Canadian studio called Hinterland Games. It has both an acclaimed plot-driven story mode and an incredibly immersive player-driven sandbox mode, both of which take place in a frozen, post-apocalyptic setting. It's the sandbox mode that I play in Against All Odds. The extraordinary success of the sandbox mode, which surprised even Hinterland back when the game was in early access prior to the release of story mode, is due to an expertly balanced interplay between the four key elements of minimalism, scarcity, entropy, and permadeath. The Long Dark doesn't make survival more complicated than it needs to be. You need to eat, you need to keep hydrated, you need to be rested, and you need to keep warm. The only supernatural element to the game is the geomagnetic storm that both sets the apocalyptic stage for the characters and causes the beautiful aurora that occasionally supercharge the world's derelict structures and crazed wildlife. There is elegance in simplicity, and The Long Dark is better built upon this concept than the vast majority of games that attempt it. Even on lower difficulties, your character starts out with less than they need to stay alive for long. In order to keep breathing, you'll need to scavenge the game's sandbox, which is still growing substantially in late 2019 with every couple of updates. Items stay right where you leave them, nothing respawns except for fallen branches and timber after a storm, and as a new player, you'll find yourself consuming all the food and drink you find within a day or two of finding it on a map that you know nothing about as you explore zones that you've never been in before. The game's relentless scarcity forces you to keep moving, sometimes in desperation, often while you have no clue where you're going, as you search for ever-dwindling resources. At the same time, particularly on higher difficulties, the apocalypse is worsening, and the world is literally dying. The environment grows colder by the day, and wildlife, both hostile and docile, can get harder and harder to find. Highly skilled players can survive for hundreds and even thousands of days, but not without a great deal of practice in a game world that seems more and more intent on killing you the longer you play. The capstone, though, on these first three gameplay elements is that once their many permutations and combinations finally prove too much for you, you're dead. Your save disappears and your game is gone. And while the sandbox's overall difficulty can be raised and lowered, there is no setting that allows you to avoid what happens when your character passes on. This might seem harsh, but longtime players tend to agree that this is the element that makes surviving by the skin of your teeth in The Long Dark so visceral and fun, and I believe it's what makes The Long Dark such a timeless classic in the survival genre. Against All Odds is a series that I started back in 2015, with the objective of capturing some of the breathtaking survival moments that The Long Dark's four key elements create. The goal has been in the past, and will be again with this series, to reach 100 days survived on one of the game's higher difficulty settings, or to die trying after a long enough run. Season 5 was the first season to use a custom difficulty that combined elements of the game's two highest difficulty settings, and also the first season to require me to restart twice due to said difficulty. We're going to use custom settings again, which I'll discuss in a moment. We're going to explore everywhere we possibly can, and while I am now more familiar with the Hushed River Valley, I have yet to set foot in the Bleak Inlet, which features timber wolves and an industrial complex containing an ammo crafting workbench and a milling machine that only works during an aurora. So I'll be experiencing that zone for the first time in this series, and still learning more about Hushed River Valley when we manage to get back there. The Long Dark Sandbox is getting truly massive, so we'll probably spend most of the series headed somewhere pretty new. And finally, the choice of start location was intriguing this time around, as I was tempted to start in Hushed River Valley, but the recent release of Wintermute Episode 3 has made Pleasant Valley starts a viable option for a series like this. And since, for one, the updates to that miserable place are much more recent than the release of Hushed River Valley, and since, for another thing, Pleasant Valley connects to a number of zones that will help prepare us to access the new Bleak Inlet, we're starting there. Yeah, you can believe it or not, but in a few seconds, we are starting a new series of Against All Odds once again in Pleasant Valley. Last, but definitely most important, Against All Odds, like all the rest of my series, is a named episodic series because it is meant to tell a story as we witness the player characters struggle to survive. I will be commentating, but not narrating in a roleplay sense, so how you experience the story is up to you. My style of Let's Play is much more focused on the narratives that emerge through the imagination of the player and the viewer than it is on exemplary or highly skilled min-max style gameplay. You will see me take risks that I know, and you know, are strategically inadvisable. You will see me largely avoid gameplay mechanics that other players rely upon, but that I find overly convenient, gamey, or obviously exploitative. For example, I almost always avoid using a trick popularly known as chaining torches. Sometimes I play differently because I'm still learning something. Most of the time, it's simply the way I've always played games, as playgrounds for our imaginations. That is the spirit of Against All Odds and of every video on my channel. That's the long and short of it. For those of you who aren't new here, let's talk about the AA06 custom code. This screen will be familiar to those of you who were here last year for Season 5, but just to demystify this a little bit, this is a list of all of the game's custom difficulty settings and their functions. This is exactly what is on the custom settings screen, which we'll be looking at in just a moment anyway, but also a lot of information about how that corresponds to each difficulty setting that exists in the game. On the left side of the screen are possible settings for each item on the list, and another column for settings that don't fit into the random, toggle, and low through very high columns. On the right side are the descriptions of each setting and a column for each of the 4 difficulty modes, the 4 default difficulty modes, showing you how that difficulty uses that setting. On the far right is the custom column. This is the one you're meant to keep your eye on as someone who is preparing to watch this series, and compare to the rest of the screen as we go along. I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but I do want to talk about what's different compared to Against All Odds Season 5. The custom column describes the exact settings this series will be using. The color code of the custom cell will help you eyeball which of the default difficulty settings is being imitated. Custom cells without a color code match the game's default across all difficulties, and green custom cells match none of the game's default difficulties. There are a few other visual indicators that I'll point out as I go along, but let's take a quick look at what's different about this year's custom code. So the first thing you might be noticing is that nothing is really different in the top couple of categories. I do use medium baseline resource availability. This is kind of a choice that I wish I didn't have to make. I would rather play on low, but what I like about medium, this top setting, for those of you who are not aware, really combines a couple of different outcomes in terms of the game start. And you can feel free, by the way, to look through the other settings here as I talk about this main one, but this is the one that kind of characterizes the baseline resource availability, which is the items that spawn on the ground, on shelves, just in space rather than in containers. And when you set this to medium, there are, as I said, a couple of outcomes. Number one, there are, first of all, higher quality clothing items in the world. So the best possible items in the game, clothing-wise, do spawn on medium, which is the Stalker equivalent. So you can get things like the Expedition Parka, you can get mucklucks, you can get gauntlets, you can get the best man-made items in the game that are not craftable. The other thing that is determined by medium is that the knife and the hatchet still spawn. When you set this on low, the knife and the hatchet no longer spawn, and the entire gameplay model of the Long Dark changes slightly because you either have to go to Hush River Valley, where the improvised tools will now spawn in the world, or you have to go to one of the 3 forge locations, Broken Railroad, Desolation Point, or Forlorn Muskeg, in order to forge your tools. And you have to do that relatively early on, as opposed to having this open sandbox style of gameplay. The moment that I am able to say in a separate setting, give me my knife and my hatchet, but give me low clothing quality so those best items don't spawn in the world anymore, I will run with that, because I do prefer the low setting for every reason aside from the fact that it doesn't allow the normal hatchet and knife to spawn in the world. So that's why we're going with medium. Everything else is kind of Interloper and Stalker level there. So moving on to environment. This is very similar to Interloper settings with one exception. Blizzards will be high as opposed to very high in frequency. This is the exact same as it was in Against All Odds Season 5. Health-wise, there are a few changes though. So this is mostly a Stalker, or this is definitely a Stalker level metabolism. So high, medium, high, and high for calories, thirst, fatigue, and freezing, the 4 main categories. But one change that I've made here, by the way, you'll notice some blue and red arrows as we go through. That's to denote whether the setting went up or went down compared to the previous code, and also the color code of the arrow is to show whether that means things got easier or harder. So that's why there's both a direction and a color. But as you can see, the at-rest condition recovery rate is higher than it was in Season 5. You guys might remember why this is. What we found was that especially in Pleasant Valley, which is a very, very cold zone, later in the game, the recovery settings were both set to below Interloper standard, which means that even when I was resting, I wasn't recovering enough condition, and it was very difficult to keep moving and really have a sense of momentum because I was having so much trouble recovering any health at all, which might sound like a challenging survival mechanic, but again, those of you who watched Against All Odds Season 5, it didn't necessarily play out that way. So I changed one thing. This is now Interloper level as opposed to below Interloper. The other setting remains unchanged, so passive condition recovery is still low, which is unprecedented in the other categories. We did also raise, to compensate for that, the hypothermia recovery time and frostbite rate settings. So these are now both very high, whereas last season they were both high. Now this is the one, if any of these changes are going to be grounds for argument or discussion in the community, it's going to be this one. Cabin fever is turned off. Again, those of you, I think, who watched all of Season 5, and particularly the previous Against All Odds seasons where cabin fever was a thing, probably understand why I did this. If you are newer to the channel, haven't been watching as long, it might be a little bit more baffling that I seem to be making the game this much easier, because the only difficulty setting where cabin fever is not a threat is Pilgrim. The reason I've turned it off is that cabin fever is annoying. It's not a threat. Yes, when it happens, it forces me to change my thinking, but that is not an enjoyable challenge. That's the problem with cabin fever right now. Cabin fever is a very simple mechanic that prevents you from resting indoors at all once you catch it. You cannot rest. You literally cannot close your eyes and go to sleep indoors while you have cabin fever. I don't think the current implementation of cabin fever is particularly fun. I have said this for multiple series, and I hope that they flesh it out a little bit more. There has been some indication that maybe they're thinking about this and adding more psychological states to the game in the future. Maybe that'll happen in 2020. But for now, because it tends to be just more of a nuisance when it comes up than a genuine thrill, we are turning it off just for the sake of being able to continue the momentum and enjoy ourselves in the series. Everything else is exactly like it is in Stalker and Interloper. So we have fires do not prevent freezing, the player does not wake up when they're freezing to death, and then all of the other conditions that can occur to the player aside from cabin fever are still enabled. Also, birch bark tea crafting is turned on because we're not playing Deadman. So, gear-wise, a couple of other changes. Well, one other change in gear. We did lower the item decay rate, and the reason that I did this was more practical than difficulty related. The world is now getting so big that I don't want the last zones that we get to for all of the stuff we find to be useless. And that's the risk that you run when you're on very high, and Interloper players know this. If you take too long to get to a certain zone, you start to run into food, less so clothing items, but definitely food items that are just at 0% when you find them. This is still a Stalker level setting. We're not going easier than that, but I did lower this just because the world has gotten so big and our series is focused on exploring everywhere. in a relatively short period of time. So I want to make sure that we can do so and find things that are useful wherever we go. I might bring that back up to very high in future series if this ends up being too reductive of the challenge, but that's what we're going with for this one. Everything else is the same here. Harvestable plant availability, you're seeing this correctly, is low. This is 2 settings lower than any other difficulty in the game. It was the same in Against All Odds Season 5, which means fewer cattails, fewer reishi mushrooms, fewer Old Man's Beard. It's a really interesting setting, and I think that it was a fun way to play. It worked exactly as intended, and I can't wait to continue playing with it. As for wildlife spawns, everything is the same with one tweak and then one fix. So the tweak is that fish spawning is now exactly like Interloper. So all of the spawn settings now match Interloper. Previously, fish spawning was at low, so this has made things a little bit easier by raising this up. The reason is that it made fish too ridiculously difficult to catch when already Interloper are more difficult than any other setting in the game to catch. So Interloper fish are more difficult than any other setting in the game to catch. So we're going to go with medium this time, just so that there's nothing too ridiculously over the top about the difficulty level. And then this is the fix that I mentioned. Time to wildlife respawn in the Against All Odds Season 5 code was set to low because the wording, this has happened a couple of times since custom difficulty was released, the wording of the description for the setting was reversed. And I interpreted it previously that it needed to be low, which meant that they've now reworded the name of the setting as well as the description, I believe, to make it very clear. But previously, what the setting was meant to do was make sure that there was a low rate of respawn so that respawns happened less frequently. This setting, high, actually guarantees that that happens. So previously, it was set to low, which means that in actuality, and Against All Odds Season 5, there were more frequent respawns of wildlife, whether that's rabbits, whether that's wolves, whether that's bears, moosin, any of those. There are now going to be fewer respawns than in any other difficulty setting in the game. Wildlife behavior is exactly as it was in Season 5, so it's just like Interloper and Stalker with one exception. Wolf fear is low as opposed to medium. And then the wildlife struggle settings, last but not least, are almost a precise balance between Stalker and Interloper. So there is an Interloper level of fighting back bonus, which is to say there is no fighting back bonus, but then the struggle condition damage and the struggle clothing damage are between Stalker and Interloper in terms of their settings, and they are unlike any other difficulty setting in the game. And then finally, struggle damage severity is more like Stalker. So the types of damage outcomes from wildlife struggles like blood loss, clothing damage, the actual conditions that can occur on top of the life that you lose. This is set to high as opposed to very high. This is the code that you can use if you would like to play on these custom difficulty settings on your copy of The Long Dark. If you are on PC, you can literally copy-paste it from the description of the video below. If you are on Xbox One or PlayStation 4 and need to write this down, the one thing I would point out to you is that this character right here is a capital I, not a lowercase l. It can be a little bit confusing when you look at this particular font because it's hard to tell, and this font, generally speaking, doesn't have the indicators that would tell you very easily which one that is. But anyway, if it's not clear from going over it in detail, the purpose of this code is to provide a balance between Stalker and Interloper. Stalker players will find it more challenging, in some ways even more challenging than Interloper, a few key ways, but at the same time, players of both Stalker and Interloper will find that it preserves the explore and find what you need in any direction that you want kind of feeling that Stalker and lower difficulty modes have, while keeping the challenge nice and high. So with that being said, let's go ahead and confirm. We are going to start in Miserable Valley. And Jennifer Hale will, of course, again be taking up the mantle as series leader. Whenever I am doing a tutorial or Interloper series on the channel, I let Mark Meir take over for those, but Jennifer will proudly be leading the series once again, and this is Against All Odds. 6, take, oh wait, too long, AAO, 6, take 1. I've learned to start saying take 1, take 2 for these save files. And here we go. It is hard to adapt to chaos, but it can be done. I am living proof of that. It can be done. Kurt Vonnegut, Breakfast of Champions. I see a birch forest. All right, this is a decent start location. It is, oh God, no, it's a decent start location at a miserable time. Crap. All right, I don't quite have my bearings. It's a beautiful night, at least. But we are going to be hard-pressed to find shelter and clothing in a reasonable amount of time here. All right, I'm going to go this way. I'm thankful that it's this bright at the moment. The moon is high in the sky. But I am not even going to stop to look at my clothing right now. I didn't go over this in the beginning of the video, but you might have noted that the gear start settings are interloper level. So the amount of gear that I have on me right now is similar to what you would find in your typical interloper start as opposed to a stalker style start. So I think I am going in the general direction of the barn. God help me. If I'm not, I hear bear crows too, so I need to be careful. I'm not sure in which direction that furry woodland friend is exactly. Oh wait, hang on. Okay, that right there, that's the river. So I'm going to go this way. I could either find my way to Thompson's Crossing, or I could find my way to the barn. But I need to move kind of quickly because it's the middle of the night. Yeah, this is not a pretty situation right now. It's the middle of the night. Right, there's the bridge. So if I hop over this bank here, I should be fairly close to where I need to be. I was hoping to find at least one cattail along this river, but priority right now is to get inside and try and get warm-ish. Maybe. That is a wolf. I'm going to hug this rock like it's my best friend in the world. Hey, best friend. How's it going? I'm just going to stay right here. Don't let me invade your personal space. Thanks. All right. All right. Now the trouble with this, there's a wolf beyond the barn as well. The trouble with what we're doing here is that we're not going to be able to see in here. Part of me just wants to keep hightailing it and go all the way to the farmhouse from here. I don't think I'm going to be able to see meaningfully, but I'll dip my head in just in case I can. Can't see squat. Leave. All right, life just got really interesting. Because now, in the middle of the night, when I'm already close to hypothermia risk and losing condition, I don't have frostbite risk yet. Looked like I was wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Yep, t-shirt and jeans. Oh, son of a... Welcome back to Against All Odds. Apparently there was another wolf that we didn't spot. I'm just going to hightail it. Oh, there's hypothermia risk. I'm going to hightail it for this car and hope he decides to give us a break. Okay, I think the wolf went after the bunny there. Good. Sorry, bunny. I didn't do that to you on purpose, I promise. All right, there's our frostbite risk. Newsprint in the floor of the car. One thing that they've changed is that... oh, hello. Glove box, of course. You can tell I'm a little frazzled because we have such... We have frostbite risk and hypothermia risk already. But one thing they've changed is that car batteries finally have a purpose. They've been in the long dark forever. You can take them out of cars, but they didn't have... There wasn't a point necessarily to taking them out of cars. Now there is. There won't be a reason for me to do it in this series for a long time. And right now, my focus is the immediate survival of my brand new character. So we're not going to talk about that right now, but car batteries do finally have a purpose. I know I'm going off the road, but that's because I'm going straight toward the farmhouse that is on the other side of the river that is going to be over this hill. We might even see the farmhouse because of how high this hill is. Okay, not quite, but we can see the orchard. My personal hope is that when we get in the farmhouse, if we're not warm enough immediately in there, we can make our way up to one of the beds in the dark. We're not going to be able to see, and sleep. And in that state, we will hopefully be warm enough. I see a cattail. I want the cattail. Come to Hadrian. Come to Hadrian. I see 2 cattails. Yay. Okay. That's 300 instant calories. I will take it. And some tinder. I'm going to kind of veer back up this way because you never know if there's wolves in the closer orchard. They have fairly wide patrol routes here. Sometimes there's a bear, sometimes there are deer, sometimes there are wolves. And right now, I think I hear deer hooves. Or it's a moose and I'm about to get trampled. No, just kidding. We would know if a moose was about to trample us. Okay. I don't see... Okay, there are wolves over there in the far orchard. Let me step in here real quick and see if there's anything laying around. Nope, of course not. And we have arrived. Let me in. Let me in. Close door. Thank you. Please, please, please. Oh, okay. We are warm enough in here without having to do anything special. Okay, so hang on. I can't see except for the light from the windows, so this is going to be a little bit of a challenge to find our way to a bed. But I know where I'm going. Just trust me on this. If you're new to the long dark, you're very confused right now. I know it's dark. I have nothing to light the space. Nothing at all. So I'm fiddling my way around in the dark. Please don't let this be the... Nah, this is the damn... I knew this was the bathroom. I promise I know where I'm going. Give me a second. Okay, stairs generally in that direction. Ugh. Yeah, there's literally nothing that I have in my inventory right now that I could use to light my way around this lovely space. I can't see a damn thing. Table. Search drawer. Okay, well, since the drawer decided to walk right in front of me. Oh, bed. Perfect. All right. I thought about it. I was like, wait, if there's a drawer there, there's a bed here. So, all right, we are good on thirst and hunger. I really just need to warm back up, get rid of that frostbite risk, and we're not going to be able to do too much at the moment. Let's go ahead and just sleep. There goes the frostbite risk. Good. And the hypothermia risk. Once the sun comes up, we'll be able to see. You woke up fully rested. Of course I did. All right, so I pretty much don't have any choice right now but to pass some time. One thing I can do in the dark with my hands is I can rip some curtains up. And that's going to pass a little bit of time. Notice we did recover a decent amount of condition there. With that amount of rest, that is a product of the settings that have been changed. Kind of a harrowing start there. And we are by no means out of the woods. Okay. So I don't see any other windows. Here's the bed. I don't have anything to drink, so I'm going to need to fix that soon. Let me sleep for as long as I can. I said 5 hours. It's not going to let me sleep for 5. It probably didn't even let me sleep for 1. All right, the sun's about to come up. Let's pass 2 hours of time. Okay. We are now officially thirsty, so we're going to have to solve that by going downstairs. There's a sewing kit. Very good. Thankfully, though, we now have visibility. people who are not familiar with searching this house. And they have made changes. I believe I mentioned that there's one room up here that doesn't have the same configuration that it used to. And if I didn't mention it, I thought I mentioned it. Okay, sounds like the weather might be worsening outside. But that's okay, we're safe in here. I just need a decent amount of wood with which to make a fire. And I will need at least one pot. But I'm reasonably confident. It took me 12 and a half minutes of gameplay to use that phrase. I'm reasonably confident.
I think I can use
Good.
this.
Got some herbal tea. That I could find something to melt some snow in. And get some water. Or, actually, I don't even need to do that, do I? Of course not. Because we're at a brand new house that's never been explored. You know what we can do? Ta-da! Could have done this last night if I had known how to feel my way around. But let's go ahead and drink. That's going to completely replenish our thirst. Of course, thirst depletes fastest of all of the needs. Right, so I'm going to rip up these towels, and with this cloth that I'm harvesting, I will be able, before long, to make some items to help cover my hands and my head.
This will come in handy.
Good. Got some worn sports socks. I'm already wearing one. Let's take a quick look at what we're wearing. We do have a t-shirt, literal jeans, worn thermal underwear in 50% condition, 63% condition on the jeans, 82% on the shirt. And we have now a couple of pairs of socks, 83 and 54% condition respectively, and then only 46% condition on our worn leather shoes. So I'm not going to make any items with the cloth I found just yet because I think it's a pretty good chance that I will find some stuff to put on in this house. I'll make those items when I absolutely have to, otherwise I want to save the cloth that I've got. Hey, magnifying lens. Very good. Use that to start fires outside. Got some revolver ammunition. Notice now that I know my hotkeys. It says perfect revolver ammunition because ammunition can now be crafted. Hello, backpack. Ammunition can now be crafted. And so there is such a thing as not perfect revolver ammunition and rifle ammunition. Okay, I've been through everything up here. Let's go downstairs. Hey, not just any grape soda, Stacy's grape soda. And that is what I thought I'd find. Decent wool mittens, some very nice hand cover to start us off. It's a fairly common spawn in that spot. Not always those gloves. Sometimes the driving gloves show up there. Those are somewhat, just a little bit less useful than the wool mittens. Okay. Sometimes stuff can be hiding underneath these benches, so I'm giving this room a thorough examination. Ha!
Hope nobody needs this anymore.
Can opener, 90%. I think that's a rifle cleaning kit. Yes, it is. Firearm cleaning kit, rather. No reason to be exclusive to rifles. That would be prejudice. Aha! We have a sport
This
vest.
stuff will come in handy.
90% condition. Let's go ahead and put that on. A little bit of extra covering, though nothing on our arms just yet. Energy bar and a bandage there. Good. Don't have to craft any bandages. I already have one just straight up making its way into my inventory. I did grab that book off the shelf. I'm going to grab that one too. For the time being, I'm going to be picking up a fair amount of stuff. There's no reason to be too judicious yet about what I pick up and what I don't pick up, because my inventory is nowhere near full. Toolkit. Come to Hadrian. There we go. Orange soda. So even though the world spawns, the items that spawn on shelves and just out in the open are set to medium, kind of a stalker level, containers are definitely interloper level. So what we're going to find is most of the drawers that we open, cabinets that we open in this difficulty setting are not going to have anything in them. Boxes, just containers, lockers, etc., etc. They will not have anything in them. That's some herbal tea there. Very nice. One thing I'm kind of sad not to find in the house so far, it might be downstairs if we're lucky, but I'm not seeing any lantern. I'll have to double check just to make sure there's not one sitting somewhere. Oh good, I think I see a cooking pot. Very good. So yes, Pleasant Valley, or good, Wilderness Kitchen, there's our first training manual. Pleasant Valley has received an update. You can probably tell a little bit from my being here right now that this house has changed shape. The texturing of the wall is different than it used to be. And the reason is that this farmhouse features heavily in the story mode episode 3 that just released. Although the absolute, oh hey, there's some accelerant. Very nice. The absolute best thing about the changes to the Pleasant Valley farmstead is this door. The ability to walk down into the basement without going out and around the house, which has always been a requirement in past versions of The Long Dark.
This will come in handy.
Got some painkillers. Decent amount of loot here at the farmhouse to get us started. Although no head covering, so we're going to have to make some. There we go. Wood matches. We now have the ability to start fires. That is a very consistent spawn point, by the way, for matches, in case you were wondering. Very consistent. I can't remember the last time I came in here on this difficulty setting, on Interloper. Interloper might be different. All right, whetstone on top, and didn't find matches there. They're very common.
Man, all I can think about is food.
All right, nothing sitting on top of the workbench, sadly. Let's see if there's anything in the washer and dryer. Another pair of jeans. Hey, I'll take it. Are they... Yep. That's where the better condition on the outside. Double up. Anything in the dryer?
I'll take it.
Wow. Okay. Well, got some cargo pants. This is one of the better runs I've had on the farmstead in a good while. And Signal Hill is, of course, nearby. So you bet we'll be going there soon. I am currently not seeing any torch down here. There's just not one. It's just not here. So that's one thing we definitely do not have so far, even though I would very much like to have one, if the game would be nice enough to grant me one. Let's go back upstairs and make sure. No, I'm not just looking for a torch. They wouldn't be... Torches are generally not down low. They're usually on shelves. If they're around at all. Okie dokie. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Okay. Couple things. First, let me go ahead and... How's my thirst? Yeah, I think it's worth going ahead and drinking the Stacy's grape soda. A little bit of caloric value in there. And we're also going to chow down on our 2 cattails. We'll be finding plenty more of those momentarily. But my next order of business is I need to craft... How much? It's going to take 30 minutes for each one. I'm really hoping a storm doesn't kick up in the time that it takes for me to do this. Because the weather is pretty good last time I looked, and I would like it to stay that way. That high weather variability could be a problem. All right, we now have a little bit of head protection, so frostbite is no longer a threat for the time being. I think I would like to see, just thinking out loud here, I think I would like to see potential frostbite risk on those improvised items, even though they're covering your hands and your head. I feel like because it's... I'm going to go check this car real quick. I feel like because it's improvised... Oh, that is a wolf. Because it's an improvised item... I see some driving gloves there. Speaking of the devil. Because it's an improvised item, it makes sense that maybe they wouldn't be the best. They're improvised. They're crappy. Good, we got a flare and a chocolate bar there. Very good. All right, now... The weather at the moment is pretty damn awesome. I'm going to take advantage of it and try to move as fast as I can. This is one of the other changes to Pleasant Valley. There is now an outstation at the farmhouse, a small barn, which can have some useful gear in it. And Signal Hill is right up there. That is our next destination. Still really freaking cold. No arm covering whatsoever, and I would imagine we might not even warm up when we're inside this barn, because it's considerably colder than the farmstead. Considerably. All right, nothing in this new tractor. Yeah, we are still not warm enough in here. Thankfully, it's warmer, so it's not going to chill us as quickly, but I don't have long to look around in here. Flare, some cedar firewood, tinder plug, hacksaw. Hey, all right. Off to the races. We got our first tool. I say off to the races like we're going to immediately start hacking everything up. No, we won't use the hacksaw for a bit, but we've got a hacksaw. That makes me happy. I'm allowed to be happy over a hacksaw. Leave me alone. All right. Now, this next move is going to be a little bit dicey because we do have a decent amount of ground to cover here, and we are already below halfway on our coldness. I also could be walking straight toward a bear right now. Minor obstacle, potentially. Now let me take the high ground just in case. Slightly longer route. Alright, those are carrion crows that you hear, not bear crows. Alright, I see a prop deer, but not a bear. Yes, we can climb that rope if we want to. I'm not gonna. It would just pointlessly exhaust me. One of the things that I would love to discuss, we can start off a mechanics addition to the game in episode 1, because this came up towards the end of season 5 a couple of weeks ago, and it relates to climbing and temporary exhaustion. One of the things that I think is maybe needing a hint of refinement in the Long Dark's tiredness systems is that you can be fully rested, like you can get like a full night's sleep, you can be well nourished, you can be there's literally a bonus in the game now called well fed that gives you higher carrying capacity. And even if you're fully rested, you can then go on a difficult climb. Look at the new tree types, by the way. See those? Oh, what's up, sprained wrist? Okay, there's that. And even if you are fully rested, you can attempt to climb even of that length right down there that we just looked at. And it takes a big chunk out of your rest meter, the one that you're looking at on your screen right now. Like a really big chunk. It makes you unreasonably tired, even though not a lot of time has passed and you still might have a long day ahead of you after having slept the whole night. So I think it might be interesting to have a debuff, like something that pops up, or if you want to call it an affliction, fine. But that kind of serves the purpose of more temporary exhaustion. Like to say, okay, you're like the word that comes to mind is, yeah, Jennifer's cold. The word that comes to mind is winded. Really? Are you freaking serious? 2 sprains on the way up here? Can't remember the last time that happened. All right, I can make a bandage, but I don't want to waste the time. If I run into an animal up here, I'm in trouble. Trying to stay on the flat ground. There we go. And hope the bear isn't up here. And that wobble due to the sprain is disorienting. As soon as we get inside, we'll make a bandage and patch that up. Or I might just sleep it off once we're up here. But yeah, it would be like a winded debuff that would tell the game, okay, you've temporarily exhausted yourself from a big climb, and it might slow you down while you're running. It might have some similar effects to being more exhausted in a, exhaustion meter sense. But okay, good. There's that pry bar.
Hope nobody needs this.
Just kind of veering that way, hoping that would be there. Ow. Pretty good start so far. Pretty solid. Cedar firewood. Nothing in here. Let's get inside. Let me know what you think of that, of the exhaustion idea, because it's something that came up towards the end of the last season, and I just think it would be a potential improvement on the game as it currently is. All right, now, again,
Man, I could eat anything.
we don't have... I mean, I can always have torches. Okay, good, we got a ragged sweatshirt. I'm going to put that on my bottom layer. Shirt on over that. Now we have some arm covering. The arm covering, by the way, that's purely rhetorical. It doesn't actually have a gameplay function. You just need to have covering in the slots. You can have t-shirts on. You can have every possible slot filled, but if you have all like t-shirts, you would still see uncovered arms. You would have less protection, but there's no literal penalty for having uncovered arms, just to be clear about that. Hey, a decent military coat. All right, let's put that on the very outside. Now we're definitely covered. Rifle ammunition in that drawer.
That smarts a bit.
I know, calm down. It will be okay, it's just a small sprain. We are warming up very slowly, especially thanks to the coat we just put on.
I think I can use this.
And a revolver cartridge. Hey, look, a lamp. Let's just pick that up and shine it around. Oh, wait. If only. If only. Okay, there's a water bottle. Tin of coffee. Condensed milk. Pinnacle peaches. Tin of sardines. All reasonably good condition. Fire striker. That is also a very, very high probability spawn. Right, nothing there. Sewing kit. If you can make it up here, there's almost always a fire striker right there. Open drawer. Do I see something there? I do see something there, but it's nothing I can pick up. Emergency stim. Stacy's grape soda. Combat pants. So combat pants can go well with the cargo pants. We have some pretty decent gear to kick things off here. We really do. Yeah, decent cargo need to be on the outside layer right now. Combat pants can be on the inside. And we are now even better protected against the elements. Nothing on the top of the bed. Let's see what's in the lockers. Huh, we got an energy drink. In the last season, and some work boots. Nice. Those are going to be much better for our feet. In the last season, we sat on an energy drink, which was added 2 or 3 patches ago. Maybe even 3 or 4 patches ago. Let's say 3 or 4. We sat on one of those for the entire series. It's kind of like a... Oh, did I just see? Yep. Military grade MRE. Yeah, I can't see a damn thing in here. I wish that wasn't the case. I would like to actually see things. I could light a match, and that would give me a little bit of visibility just to make sure that I've picked everything up from in here, but I've sure as hell found a lot of really good stuff. Tell you what, let's go ahead and craft a bandage out of 1 piece of cloth. Let's address that sprained ankle. Alright, now, I'm going to need to eat some of my lesser conditioned stuff. My pinnacle peaches are getting pretty low, so before they get any worse, let's go ahead and just eat those. One bonus of eating the pinnacle peaches is that I will get a can out of this as well. Now let's eat the condensed milk too. These are heavier items and I don't want to be lugging them around. Perfect. Alright, so thirst has been replenished. We're in much better shape. I'm still pretty tired, but since the weather seems to be good... Yeah. Weather's still reasonable. I'm going to make my way back down to... That is a bear. You know what I said I was going to do? Or, you know that thing I was just saying? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I'm actually going to stay inside here so as not to aggravate this mama. Sup? Oh, no, please don't come through there. That's not nice. Okay, so we're going to stay here. We're going to relax here instead, recover a little bit of condition. We're off to a pretty decent start. Another thing that I can do, how much cloth do I have on me right now? I've got a couple of sewing kits. I could repair some stuff with what's left of my energy here. How much cloth? Exactly, 11. Yeah, that's enough to get some repairs going. So let's do it this way. We're going to look at condition. And let's make an attempt on the, first of all, the most consequential items. It's always good to try to repair the items that, where a repair would give you the most degrees back in terms of protection. Alright, so the gear that we're wearing on our upper body is already in pretty good shape, with the exception of the ragged sweatshirt, so ignoring what I just said. We're going to repair that. It's up to 64. Let's give it one more. There we go. I was about to say, 2 successful repairs to kick off the series. I'll take it. Game's being way too nice to me. Way too nice. Okay, 90%. Right, now we're much better. Okay, we're pretty tired. And it's not going to be long before we're encumbered by the stuff we're carrying. But I would love to try and make it back down to the farmstead. If I can manage that. Because the weather does seem to be rather nice at the moment. And the bear seems to have buggered off. We're going to have to beeline, though. And we might encounter the bear again on our way back down. We've gotten off to a really good start with our gear, especially with that military coat. I find that that Signal Hill is usually very kind, even on lower baseline resource availability, when you go up there, if you can get up there quickly. But of course, we also have the new area to explore, which is called Thompson's Crossing, which was added to Pleasant Valley in the Wintermute Episode 3 update, which came out not too long ago. I'm very excited about that as well. So, this is a good start. And with the stuff that we've found this episode, we can already make some interesting decisions, I think. Especially if we find some head covering. Earmuffs or otherwise. I mean, I would love to find some actual toques or a balaclava, but we could find, if we found enough head covering, there are a number of zones that connect to Pleasant Valley. Coastal Highway, Mystery Lake. Hey, we're not going that way. And Timberwolf Mountain. And with the gear that I already have, especially since I just found the hacksaw, there are certain directions in which I could go immediately. I don't want to tease too much because I haven't made the decision yet. But the point is that we have the ability to make the decision. Let me try not to sprain in range of this damn bear. Come on, level out. Thank you. Okay. We're much better protected from the elements at this point, but it is getting dark, so it's not going to stay that way for long. The nice thing about where we're at right now is that by the time we get back to the farmstead, we will be quite ready to sleep. We have not yet found a knife or a hatchet, though. Just a hacksaw. So we have more exploration for sure. I'm going to pay a visit to that vehicle. Vehicle. Going to visit that. And then head to the farmstead, which is right in that direction yonder. Hey, Stick. Come here. Why do I feel like I just heard a wolf? That's only slightly terrifying. We have a pry bar now, so we can force stuff open, including the locker downstairs in the farmstead, which is part of the reason I would like to go back there. Nothing here. Nothing in the front seat either. Sad day. What's up, car battery? Oh, there's no car battery. Oh. Instant disappointment. Back to the farmstead. Hey, there's our encumbrance. Alright, let me not sprint too quickly, because there's a wolf between me and the farmstead. I would like to know about it before I have no energy left. Seems like a plus. Okay. So I'm going to go straight down to the basement while there's still some daylight, because we've established that I can't see anything once the night sets in. And I'm going to check that locker that I couldn't get into before. And then, in the next episode of Against All Odds Season 6, we will probably head to Thompson's Crossing. That seems like the next sensible. Is this new music? This sounds like new music. Let's stand on the porch and enjoy it.
starting to feel numb.
Shh. Might be a fairly long track, so we'll have the opportunity to hear it again throughout the series, I'm sure. But let's go downstairs while we have some light. Okay. Now, I believe we had at least one locked locker here. Yep. Nada. Which is kind of what I was expecting. To be straight up with you about it. Okay, I have 2 flares, 12 matches, so it's not like I have no light source, but interesting. So it actually saves the game when we come upstairs. Love that. Okay, well, in that case, since it just saved the game, I'm going to use that as the endpoint to our first episode of Season 6 of Against All Odds. Like I said, in the next one, we're probably going to head to Thompson's Crossing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to follow along. New episodes of Against All Odds, as usual, are going to be coming out every day at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. By the way, if you're watching this when the video went live, I hope that you all had a Merry Christmas if you celebrated, that you are generally having a happy holiday season and getting some time with your friends and family, regardless of how you choose to celebrate. This is probably out, if it goes according to plan, a day or two after December 25th. So again, I hope everyone has enjoyed this end of the year and is looking forward to some interesting New Year's plans. Certainly we'll have the series going during that time, so we'll have lots of fun here on YouTube to be enjoyed during your downtime. Again, thanks for watching. Comments are always welcome. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.